Damn you! God damn you all to hell!
Oh, what a surprise! Joe Jesus Jr.'s gonna set us all straight.
Travis Wayne Goodsall. The California fires disturb me in the way it's being managed. And even though Trump says it's Newsom's fault, the governor, I not quite, but in such a national emergency, a chain of command is required, and that's why President Biden was briefed on what was going on and then declared a national emergency, allowing the national emergency to take effect. But Congress still has to approve the funding. Nevertheless, commanders-in-chief, and I apparently am witnessing that people, first responders, went in to the neighborhoods and told them to get the hell out. As the news also was telling people to get out, run, flee. And people getting interviewed are independent from their homes. They've got their vehicle that they fled with. And there is no command center that I am seeing. And that's what disturbs me, is because that this kind of a disaster requires a more organized process. People have lost their homes, they've lost everything. And for the state of California to allow people to go their own way without a command center is disturbing. Ideally, we'll get to it. I just woke up. If this happened in Utah, as it's prophesied to do, section 101, Joseph Smith's parable, verse 51, which Joseph Smith supplemented with what Brigham Young refused to publish because he was being a whiny little he got called out as being exposed as the enemy. Nevertheless, in verse 6 of his prophecy that is available online, I'm still surprised that more Mormons are not going to it to obtain it for their collection. This is from the Joseph Smith papers. This is Joseph Smith's. Just because you don't recognize my authority doesn't mean that I don't have authority. Church isn't true. You should have run the test. You didn't run the test. You got conned. You blame me. You didn't run the test. All these years, over 8.3K videos, and Mormons still refuse to run the test. Anyway, then the enemy shall come as a thief in the night, and broke down the hedge, and the servants of the nobleman arose and were affrighted, and fled. Harold B. Lee's additional articles of incorporation in 1970. You know, they were stalking me this morning. They were wondering where I was. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is this enemy. Joseph Smith calls out Brigham Young in this document. That Brigham Young is the enemy. That they will betray Mormons, just like they betrayed Joseph Smith. They came with Brigham to this valley and they called themselves Danites. And they refuse to confess. They are living the lie and getting as many Mormons to believe the lie, whether you are innocent or knowingly complicit. The enemy shall come as a thief in the night, church paid the Judas price. Last night's video. The giving machines are giving to terrorism. That's the big picture that they've been showing for months now. The Islamic Woman, that charity that's listed on the machine for all Mormons to see, is through Saudi Arabia, who fund the Islamic State, who had one of their newest recruits, an American, who attacked in New Orleans. The church funded that through this giving machine. The enemy shall come as a thief in the night, and broke down the hedge, and the servants of the nobleman arose and were affrighted, and fled. Harold B. Lee, 1973's Additional Articles of Incorporation. Says, upon the winding down and dissolution of this corporation, notice he doesn't say religion. This is not a religion, Mormons. You got punked. And you blame me, and you're in denialism of it, and you refuse to listen. You refuse to save yourselves from this enemy that is holding you hostage. And then you blame me. Bleeping bleepers. God. And thus the enemy did scatter the servants abroad. When the seed of these 12 olive trees are scattered abroad, they shall wake up the nations of the earth. Even this nation shall be on the very verge of crumbling to pieces and tumbling to the ground. And when the Constitution is upon the brink of ruin, this people will be the staff upon which the nation shall lean, and they shall bear away the Constitution away from the very verge of destruction. That requires an exodus, Mormons. That requires a man like Moses, who was a part of the exodus. This is what you refuse to accept and understand. This is what the church took out of the Doctrine and Covenants manual this year. Section 103, verse 15 through 18. Behold, I say unto you, the redemption of Zion must needs come by power. Therefore I will raise up unto my people. Amen. Any confusion about who this identity is? Notice it can't be Jesus. Notice it can't be Joseph Smith. He's dead. He's not resurrecting from the grave as a zombie to lead Mormons. You might say, well, we have President Russell Marion Nelson. He'll lead us in an exodus. You never ran the test, did you? Never ran the test. You shall lead them like Moses led the children of Israel. See, Nelson is Pharaoh. Moses had no authority as the president of the church. Pharaoh did. Moses was just a regular Mormon just like you. And yet, chosen in Utah to start his ministry in Utah, top of the mountain, to save Mormons, to let my Mormons go. And Mormons said no. Not just Pharaoh. For Mormons are the children of Israel and the seed of Abraham, and must needs be led out of bondage by power and with a stretched out arm. And as your fathers were led at first, even so shall the redemption of Zion be. story of the Exodus is prophecy and revelation for you, Mormons. There is an enemy coming. They're going to destroy you in this valley. Church is going to run away with their trillions of dollars. That is their plan. They're going to abandon you. That doesn't seem to correspond with the Exodus, because Pharaoh actually gives, along with Egypt, money for the Mormons to go in an Exodus. But it hasn't happened yet, so speculation and claims of prophecies are mere premature right now at this moment. So, there's the test that you should have been running. Again, the church doesn't want you to know about. The duty of the president of the office of the high priesthood, that was Joseph Smith when this was written, is to preside over the whole church and to be like unto Moses. Notice it's not Peter, James, and John. The keys of the president of the church is Moses. This is the Jewish Christ. Deuteronomy 18, verse 15. They didn't footnote it correctly. They don't want you to know this. They diminish the Jewish Christ in this church. They don't want you to know this. Joseph Smith is our Christ as the head of the church. And as the head of the church, as our Christ, in the learning of the Jews, he is a seer, revelator, translator, prophet, having all the gifts of God, which he bestows upon the head of the church, and no one else. Not the president of the 12, not the 12, no one else. These are the tests that you're supposed to run. Did Joseph have visions? Yeah. Why, hell, and you call them literal history. Is the Book of Mormon a vision and dream? Yes. Joseph tells you, because a seer is a prophet and a revelator. And so Joseph tells you in the introduction, the Book of Mormon is written in the spirit of prophecy and revelation, not literal history. And so when he tells you it's the story of the Lamanites and the Nephites, that's the story part of prophecy. And there should be revelation of the day and the hour for the latter days. But you missed it because this church lied to you. And so just as the Matthew author says, by the fruits you shall know a false prophet, you also have seer, revelator, and translator. These are all science keys. And thus the science of agronomy, seed to produce fruit, is the test. Science, not spiritual witness feelings. You got conned, and you blame me. As you see, I'm being attacked this morning. The one that you missed had to delete and redo because of my frustration with this enemy that is attacking me to keep you from watching my videos. This church knows who I am, and so it's pathetic that nobody knows who I am. So today is the 10th of Tevet. This is the 9th year of Zedekiah, which I've already gone over with you, is prophecy and revelation in the Book of Mormon for 2017. Trump is Zedekiah. But Zedekiah was also the great high priest, a religious leader. And so thus my picture that I've been using for this lately shows Nelson as Zedekiah, with Moses, me, warning him, let my people go. You are being wicked. And instead, he imprisons Jeremiah for 6 years of his life, disappeared. Nobody was supposed to know he ever existed. Locked up in a dungeon without due process. Prophecy and revelation. Then, 9 months, Gail Miller's concentration camp of hell of human trafficking. Patterns for the prophecies. Patterns. Joseph of Egypt, indefinitely incarcerated. Jesus, indefinitely incarcerated. Yep, Jesus ain't real, remember? Jewish. Prophecy and revelation. And so Babylon came in this 9th year of Zedekiah to begin the siege to destroy it. The full latter days from 2014, when I was freed from my bondage, to this year is 11 years. I knew when I got out that it might be for all of the inspiration that I received on how to build, run, and design Zion. As I got the dream of being given authority over this church. The Hinckley dream. And then 2 years later, in 2016, I would have my Monson dream with tents and boots. Hinckley dream had 77 and 88 in them. So 7 plus 8 is 15, which is weird and complicated, but it's just for me. Don't worry about it. You got to keep those kinds of things under control, because you can let them get out of hand and look beyond the mark. And so then this last year on 9/11, I had at 3 in the morning woken up with my Irene dream transferring authority to me, and the number 15 doubled. And so then did the different countdowns because of the 15s starting off Jewish holidays, holy days. And then the church kept failing to hire effective assassins. So we're now in Plan G, which is scheduled for the 21st of January. And technically Plan H is for Oakes's 2nd of January, after the failure of New Orleans. Because he was planning to make it bigger. He was planting bombs, according to the news. They were showing the video of him planting explosive devices. And fortunately, they caught him, or actually he killed himself in the truck, didn't he? Wasn't that the case? But nevertheless, those explosives didn't go off. So it was supposed to be a bigger damage than what it was. So Oakes came out the next day and says, okay, fine, Plan H will be Easter. Even though they've already told us January 21st would be the other one. And so, using the scripture prophecies that I just read to you about the enemy coming in and destroying Utah, it's very important to understand that Utah is a sanctuary state. That Governor Cox was pissed that this got leaked. Because he had come out before and said, we're going to fully comply with Trump and deport Mormons from the state of Utah. And then came out and said, well, yeah, that's important too, but we're going to focus first on getting rid of apostates like Travis. And so thus the ICE director came out and did the memo thing about how Utah is a sanctuary state. That Utah told him to back down on deporting illegals from the state of Utah because of the connection to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So Governor Cox was pissed and wanted to fire him. He's calling the government to have him fired and replaced with somebody who will be more compliant. The state of Utah got caught and busted. And as such, we have to prepare and plan for the enemy to come in and attack us. Because if Trump gets into office, ICE will be required to deport everyone in the state of Utah who is illegal. And we have a number of Islamists. We have the highest per capita of Islamic centers in this valley. And so I can't imagine people are just going to submit. That people are going to be so apathetic that they just willingly go to their deaths. I can't believe that psychology has brainwashed this nation to that point. That would just be horrifying for human beings in this nation to be rounded up willingly and then be executed on live Trump TV. That they wouldn't even try to fight for their survival. That they wouldn't even try to form a rebellion and protest at least. I can't believe that psychology has done such great damage to the minds of Americans yet. They're working on it. Even in The Handmaid's Tale, it's about the first wave of handmaids, people who are in bondage to Gilead. And that we're now seeing in season 4 and 5 that the new wave of the children who are now growing up and are now ready to be breeders are more compliant and submissible, because that's how they were taught and raised, in bondage. They know no other life. And so there's a big difference. And the author correctly recognizes that difference. But that's the intention of the Trump Agenda 47, is that the first wave must be a strong arm, crushing authoritarian abuse until the next generation of babies are able to be raised up under the system, never knowing that they are in bondage. And thus we get 1984 also was in this first wave of transitioning. But yeah, they were able to get the masses into the bondage fairly easily. There were rebel movements, so I guess it was those who submitted, and they talked about the rebel factions in their propaganda news thing to force compliance among the populace. Yeah, we've been warned of the dangers of fascism and how they control your lives, telling you what to do, how to live, how to think, how to feel. This is what the church does to you. They tell you how to feel, how to interpret scriptures, so that you can only believe what they tell you to believe. You don't use science in this church. You don't run the test with science as the scriptures tell you to do. And so you get led astray and conned. And so, with the 10th of Tevet, Babylon coming in and beginning the siege, this was a situation where, again, people's lives are destroyed and there was no command center. Even though it took another 2 years until Jerusalem was conquered, the aftermath has been clearly recorded in history. The temple was destroyed. There were many who were taken hostage into Babylon. And they were assimilated into all things Babylon. The 10 Commandments of the Qumran community as the Babylonian Sabbath day. And even though they were trying to turn that into the prophecy of the latter-day Jewish Christ to save them, which, if you haven't caught on, it's me. I'm just like Joseph Smith. You believe in him, and you won't believe me. You're waiting for supernatural Jesus to show up, are you? You believe in a supernatural, not real person who can save you and heal you, and yet you won't believe what is right here in front of you. That Joseph Smith is a human being who got inspiration, who you just needed to run the tests. But instead, this church, who failed the tests, you imposed that on Joseph, diminishing Joseph. Not just diminishing him as a regular prophet rather than the Jewish Christ. You don't see his prophecies. You don't accept his prophecies. You just think it's some moral lesson that's being given to you. But the church is now teaching you through the Come Follow Me manuals. And so thus they eliminated all of the prophecies of Joseph Smith this year from the Doctrine and Covenants. And so, let me tell you of how I've got it planned. But under a direct attack, nobody's going to do it. The fall of the church must happen. The transfer to me must happen so that Mormons know I'm your leader. And then we can go in an exodus. What should happen under national disaster situations is that those on the front lines of the command, which if it's at a city level would be the mayor, the county mayor, multiple cities, then you have to include the governor to be the one in charge. And if it gets extreme, even the president would need to be involved as the commander-in-chief. It's not just for an attack by an enemy, but a natural disaster is an attack by an enemy, just not a human enemy. And so first responders are police, fire, and EMTs, along with search and rescue. All these need to be activated instantly. The fire department for putting out the fire in this particular case, the police to get people out and take them to a command center where the EMTs can then assist with medical emergencies, with first aid and all that. Search and rescue would likewise go in with the police at first, and then go in after the fires go through to search for anybody who may have survived. In fires, it's kind of difficult for people to survive that. Whereas an earthquake that topples buildings, that's where they would be more likely utilized. For the purpose of getting people out of the rubble who have survived. And the command center is where everybody is brought to. And so they can post pictures of them so that when other people get there, they can check that list to see who else that they know has survived, and also provide pictures of those who aren't there, so that if anybody knows of them, they can search that and go, oh wait, I saw that person. They were getting eaten by a whale. Stuff like that. And say, oh yeah, they're over there in that area of the camp. And so that people can know who's been found, who's been saved, and who's left to be found. Especially for others from around the state, around the nation, around the world, who have people that they know in that area, that they too can be aware of this. Thanks to the internet, that would make it easier for this to happen. The news can spread the word as well, not just with an internet site. So that people from around the world can check that site and see if their loved ones have survived. Because in certain natural disasters, phone communications can tend to not work. So, especially some situations, the officials don't want you calling because you're clogging up the lines for the emergency responders. And then, even though there's the Red Cross, the government needs to step in for this. People need shelter, people need food, people need clothing, people need sanitation. Those are the emergency needs, along with energy and fuel. But that goes with shelter. And so the government shouldn't be requiring charities to step in, but charities often use this as an excuse to steal money from other people, claiming that they were going to help those in this disaster. The church has already been now telling us that they're going to steal money from you if you donate to them, because the church news exposed that the church has no intention of actually helping the people. It'll just be the regular Mormons who wear the yellow shirts and do slave labor. The church typically only sends 2 truckloads, and so they'll send it to a designated stake that's affected by this. And it'll only be for a few select Mormons. Church can easily pay for the damage done in California. Last night's reporting was $50 billion in damage. That's just 1% of tithing for the church. People did not fully understand the whistleblower. Ensign Peak Advisors is not the source of all the tithing revenue. It is 10% taken out of the total revenue of tithing. Ensign Peak Advisors does not spend any money for what tithing is used for. And so the 250 that we last heard it was at means the total tithing is $2.5 trillion. And it's very likely over 300 billion, which means over 3 trillion for just tithing. The church has dozens of other sources of revenue, like the giving machines. Everything is done the same exact way and process. The giving machines has an LLC company for 10% to invest. The church does not spend any of that money on anything for the giving machines. That's just extra money coming in. And so the extra money that is not spent on what is intended to be used for, i.e. charities, because the church gives you the front of the charities of others, for which they give the small portion to them for. The remainder of the money, the church then puts in an offshore bank account in a non-extradition country. This is the pattern. Nelson came out and said, this is the pattern. We do it with all sources of income. Australia exposed this. Canada exposed this. It's well known and established that this is how it's done. And so if tithing is 3 trillion, and they've got dozens of other sources of revenue doing the exact same thing, yeah, easily 5 trillion. And this 5 trillion makes 50 billion 1%. That's it, 1%. If you have $1, 1% is 1 penny. You still have 99 cents left over. The church can restore the Californians back to their lives. The church can take care of the Californians all by themselves, without the government assistance, without the Red Cross, without con artists stepping in to say, you know, we are California, we are the people. Give us money and we'll help feed them and get them back in homes. The money won't go to them, it'll go to us, 'cause there are expenses to run this corporation and con the world. Yeah, Africa's not better. They didn't help Africa. I remember that. I saw that on the one channel, and so I said, changed to the other channel. Same thing on that. Went to the final, last, and only other channel. So nothing on TV tonight. Great. Yep, ABC, CBS, NBC. That was it. And then eventually Fox would come on in the 80s, late 80s. So, yeah. That's how it is supposed to be done. The government should be involved with this because people need their lives back. Government needs to know who needs to be restored so that the funding from the federal government would actually go to them, not to pay for the first responders. The people need to be restored. But yeah, you do need to pay the first responders, and that federal money should go to them too, but because insurance, it's a gambling institution. We shouldn't even have insurance. This is where the government comes in, finds out who is in need of new shelter, and provides it for them. But our economic system will not allow that. Zion will allow that. The church could do the charitable thing and do that. They've got more than enough wealth, and they won't do it. That's the real tragedy that nobody is understanding. And the church has their excuses. Well, we don't want to be a welfare state. We don't want people dependent on us. Seriously? Their lives are ruined, and you're making excuses not to help. And thus why a rich man never goes to Zion. So this is the video. And it has to do with the book of the law from section 85, verses 7 and 11. This book of the law is a list of those who get to go to Zion. It is not written yet. Brigham Young created his own before he even had access to the letter of Joseph Smith to W.W. Phelps. Because Brigham Young would go on to call his ledger the Book of the Law from section 85, which is why he agreed to put it in the Doctrine and Covenants the year before he died. But wasn't smart enough to realize that putting section 117 in exposed his whole plot. 116 is a forged document. 17 is a forged document. 16 too, but for the Book of the Law. And the church won't tell you it's the Book of the Law. They tell you that it's proof that section 119 as a forged document is true. It's the whole criminal operation of finance, prostituting Mormon women, as the great and abominable church of the Greeks did to the Jews when they conquered the temple. And so, not only is this one mighty and strong to stop the abomination of desolation and restore the temple, to no longer prostitute Mormon women. It's also for the book of the law, for the inheritances of Mormons in Zion. And this is where I've gone over with you at the latter end of my hours-long videos, so that those who endured to the end can be rewarded, and those who are offended will never know. Section 133 is my call out when the church falls, when the transfer to me has been made, so that Mormons can then be called to Zion. Without the fall, without the transfer, I can't do anything. I am currently helpless to help you. There's nothing I can do until the fall of the church happens and the transfer is made to me. And yes, it's driving me crazy, because I'm seeing the suffering. There are Mormons in California involved in these fires, and the church won't even help them. Just a minimal. Their lives are ruined. They need Zion. And so yes, it's tearing me apart that the church is not following and transferring it to me so that I can save those Californians too. But this book of the law is a listing of those who want to go to Zion, who are worthy to go to Zion. It has nothing to do with paying tithing. The payment of tithing is for the storehouse in Zion. You provide to the storehouse, you get to live in Zion. That's simple. There is no monetary system of economy. And so, with the call out, I need to have an organized system. Just like pictures of those who have been found and those who are still missing, those who are going to Zion need to be put in the book of the law. And since this church already set up the system, bishops will be utilized for that purpose. That each ward will be the handcart company, the pioneers to come to Zion. That's why I've been doing the pictures of showing Mormons going to the Salt Lake Valley and then showing them going back to Zion, to help use that imagery to let you know about what needs to happen. And nobody gets it, I guess. All these picture memes in vain. But bishops are supposed to find out who from their ward wants to go. They need to go in and talk with him. Those who have left the church, want nothing to do with it, need to understand the church fell, that it was transferred to me, that the bishops no longer are bishops of the old order. They're not going to ask you sexually graphic questions anymore. They're not going to rape you anymore. If the bishop is a rapist, he will not be going to Zion. Anyway. And so, yeah, there are likely to be bishops who say, no, I am not going, Travis. And so, yeah, then it would be counselor that would be in charge. If there are no counselors, then the elders quorum president. If the elders quorum president or his counselors, then a priesthood holder in the ward who wants to go would be the one in charge. He would need to be given access to the computer systems so that he can get the exclusive email to communicate with me, which means the transfer gives that to me, so that I will know all of the different wards and the members, and thus even those records of those who have left the church. And so anybody who wants to come to Zion would meet with the leader. We'll just assume the bishops. Those who have abused me, they know who they are. They know they cannot come. But that's another issue that I'll have to deal with. That's why the importance of this ledger, or the book of the law, not the ledger, is that once the bishop gets the collection of all who are coming and gets them set up to go, he then sends it to me. I then review it, make sure that there's no apostates who have abused me or others on there. You know, Chad Daybell, if he were to suddenly be freed from prison and somehow manage to sneak into a ward to get approved to go, and I saw him in the book of the law for that bishop, I would send back to the bishop, no, he is not allowed to go. And that's how it is initially supposed to be run. And then the stake president, yeah, he could fill in for a particular bishop if there's problems getting a priesthood leader. And even the Relief Society leadership, they have authority. It's not just a priesthood thing. That's just the system that's currently in place by this church. That's what we're going to use. But yes, if there is a failure in the system, I have no problems women being in charge to help get people to Zion. Because everybody has to do the same thing. Find out who's going, get them set up to go, send me the list of those who are going, and then they come to Zion because I've put out the call. And when they get to Zion, it will be at the command center. There will be a medical station. There will be a kitchen, mess hall. There will be a communications system. And there will be places for shelter. And yeah, it will be tents at first, unless we can do makeshift temporary shelters, which is also an option, so that it's not necessarily in tents, but maybe when you first arrive it might have to be in tents, depending on the timing of things. But then at the check-in location, the leader, the bishop, gives his book of the law to me or whoever else is helping me, and we compare it with what was originally given to us to make sure that it's all legitimate. And so then they would go on to the next station, like the medical, or to the mess hall for food if necessary. And then they'd be informed of where their lot would be to set up temporary shelter. And so thus those who want to know if other family members have arrived, the command center would be able to tell them. And be able to tell them of who refused to come. And so, others along the way who find out about this and want to become a part of Zion and don't want to be a part of the Civil War in America and world wars in Panama, Canada, Greenland, Europe, South Korea, Tibet, India, Africa, the Middle East, World War III. They're welcome to come to Zion, but they need to understand there is no monetary system of economy. There will be no underground economy to steal money from people. There's no need to steal. All of that is eliminated. The natural behaviors of man are gone in Zion because you just provide for the storehouses. And then you get whatever you need and whatever you want. You just need to understand that it's going to take time to build Zion. It's not built. And so people will be on a priority list. The elderly and the disabled and single mothers, even, well, yeah, but those of greater needs get first priority in Zion for their places of their lot of inheritance. I am last. When all of you get your homes, then I get mine. And so I don't know how long it's going to take to build. China can build a skyscraper in a couple of weeks. I don't know how sturdy they are in an earthquake, but my design for Zion is far more secure and stable than a skyscraper. It's going to be as big as a city. And so, but that's the next phase afterwards. This is only about the Exodus with the coming destruction. So, we wait. And it's frustrating me that we have to wait. But it is sad that there are many who have come and followed me for a little bit, couldn't endure to the end. They wanted things to happen faster, just like I did, but I'm required to go the distance. I can't just give up on you. Because I know that my position was the one who knew this information, was the only one who knew this information. So I had a duty and obligation to share it with you. Plus, I've never been one to be cruel, to just abandon people. I can't do it. And it's sad that the ones who are being abused by this church are females. And they're the one people that need to be saved. And yet they're the one people who are not watching my channel because they got offended with me somehow, some way, as an excuse not to watch my channel. And that will be a test. That women will not be allowed in if they fail the test. By being women, you're not automatically righteous. Even though the church has led you to believe that so you can be happy about your bondage to them. You fell for that con. And so yeah, the one test that I can do is to find out if women are still idol worshippers and sabotage you when you arrive at the command center. Just have my calendar set out on the desk for you to see. And if you're offended, you can go back. I'm not forcing you to stay here. Idol worshippers will not be allowed in Zion. Abuse of women will not be allowed in Zion. This is not abuse of women. Swimsuit calendar. A woman is not evil. A woman's body is not evil. Shame on all who call these women evil. I am pissed that Sports Illustrated caved to the pressures of women to get obese women into a athletically fit women issue of the swimsuit calendar, of the swimsuit issue for Sports Illustrated. The unhealthy, unfit obesity of women should not be celebrated. And Sports Illustrated caved to the threats. And they shouldn't have. They should have stood up for their women. But because they were doing it for money purposes, like Carl's Jr. and their burgers, again, women were shamed doing the commercials, trying to make a living by getting paid to do those commercials. But because they were in swimsuits, oh, this is porn. They're eating a burger. Back off. There's too much abuse in this world, and it will not be allowed in Zion. And so, yes, I'm deeply concerned about the need to re-educate Mormons. Because Mormons who have been educated to believe in idol worship, who then are free from their captives, tend, as the church sabotages you to believe, you go off the deep end. You go and you do drugs and you have unprotected sex orgies. And you get STDs. That's an extremist view. That will not be allowed either. But that's why the church does that. You either obey us or you worship Satan. Don't we have 3 degrees of glory and then an outer darkness? No! It's our way or it's outer darkness. Yeah. There are just those things that you can spot a liar, a person who's trying to hold you in bondage and take away your agency. Another Russian woman yesterday commented, "Don't you understand? I can expose you guys." Bruce R. McConkie is not a primary source. Come on. God, I miss Anya. She was so smart. What the hell happened to the other Russians in America? They're not smart. And just easily, they don't know the church. I mean, Mormons don't either, but still. Come on, guys. You gotta be better for Putin. So yes, no spies. I will not be conned like the church got conned in allowing Islamist women to be baptized and continue to wear their Islamic sexual abuse. If you come to Zion, you are giving up your religion of falsehood. because that will destroy Zion. Zion must be kept from the wickedness of the world. Agency must be given, but agency isn't the agency to be wicked, because wickedness takes away the agency of others, and nobody has that agency. That's the whole purpose of the Constitution. We have rights, but we don't have rights to take away others' rights. And America fell because our government failed to regulate the rights of all people equally in accordance with the Constitution. So